In a film defined by violence and chaos, why does Pulp Fiction end on such quiet clarity? This is the final diner standoff between a man with a gun and a man who's changed. But what actually changes in that moment, and why does it still feel like one of the most powerful scenes Tarantino ever wrote? So what makes the quietest moment in Pulp Fiction a film of chaos and violence its most perfect? In a film that opens with a diner robbery, leaps across time, swirls with drugs, bullets and adrenaline, how does Quentin Tarantino manage to close on a scene of serene philosophical clarity? The final diner standoff between Jules and Pumpkin isn't just a coda. It redefines everything we thought Pulp Fiction was about. Pulp Fiction, written and directed by Quentin Tarantino, was a cinematic rupture. Its non-linear structure, meta dialogue and pop culture pastiche became instant cultural artifacts. But beneath the surface lies something deeper, and it all culminates in this one scene. The brilliance of Tarantino's ending is not that it ties up plot threads neatly, it doesn't. What it does instead is resolve a deeper question. What does it mean to be cool, and what does it mean to change? It gives us the answer not with spectacle, but with stillness. The ending of Pulp Fiction is perfect because it reframes chaos as choice, violence as restraint, and meaning as something self-created, all through Jules' transformation. But why does this scene resonate so deeply in the cultural landscape of the 90s? In 1994, America was riding a cultural paradox. The mainstream is fascinated with irony, nihilism, and edge. Gen X skepticism and postmodern pastiche dominated media. Tarantino wasn't the first to fracture narrative time or elevate pop culture to high art, but he was the first to do it so viscerally, with such bravado. Pulp Fiction's impact came at a time when American audiences were growing increasingly disillusioned with formulaic storytelling. The early 90s marked a cinematic pivot from the clean moral arcs of the 80s into more ambiguous, self-aware narratives. Tarantino's film entered the zeitgeist like a Molotov cocktail, blending grindhouse violence with existential cool. Jules' final monologue, an exploration of biblical misinterpretation, faith and free will, landed in a culture hungry for meaning beneath the ironic pose. The audience that grew up with action heroes was now questioning what heroism meant. Was it killing with style, or choosing not to kill at all? The diner scene draws from multiple traditions: spaghetti western standoffs, noir redemption, Buddhist parables. Tarantino, the ultimate cinephile auteur, fuses these into a genre-defying close that both honors and subverts cinematic expectations. And crucially, it doesn't moralize, it poses questions. Can a man like Jules really change? Can any of us? That question echoed far beyond the screen. So what cinematic tools make this moment feel so emotionally final in a structurally fragmented film? Mise-en-scène is deceptively mundane. A kitschy diner, warm lighting, casual costumes. Yet within this space, the emotional stakes are immense. The gun in Jules' hand, the tension in Honey Bunny's voice, the calm in Jules' eyes. Everything is designed to feel grounded and surreal at once. The use of blocking is subtle but effective. Jules is seated, passive, calm, yet visually dominant. Pumpkin, who holds the gun, is shot from angles that emphasize his desperation. Jules is framed in stillness, a man who no longer needs to prove anything. The camera mostly sits still, reflecting the emotional stillness Jules has achieved. This is in stark contrast to earlier kinetic sequences like the adrenaline shot or Butcher's escape. Tarantino's choice to slow the visual rhythm matches Jules' slowed spiritual pulse. The editing is minimal, long takes, shot reverse, shot dialogue, lingering on Jules' face. These choices force the viewer into an intimate philosophical confrontation. We're not watching action, we're watching a man rewrite his own script. The sound design, or lack of, also plays a key role. The diner clatter fades into the background as Jules begins to speak. Samuel L. Jackson's delivery becomes a kind of sermon. The score is absent, making room for every word to land with full weight. His performance anchors the entire scene. His delivery of Ezekiel 25:17, once a threat, now a confession, is subtly rephrased, emotionally recalibrated. His voice softens, his body deflates. It's not just a monologue, it's a cinematic transformation. So what deeper truth is this scene whispering about redemption, identity, and meaning? At its core, this scene is about choice. Jules, a hitman by profession, chooses peace. He chooses to walk the earth, to exit the cycle of retribution. This choice doesn't come from a divine revelation, but from a near-death experience interpreted through self-reflection. The biblical quote, formerly used as performance, now becomes sincere introspection. He was the tyranny of evil men, but now he sees the truth, the shepherd, the weak, the path of righteousness. This shift illustrates a powerful concept. Identity is not static. Jules isn't bound by his past violence. He claims authorship over his narrative. In a genre that often glorifies the finality of death, Pulp Fiction gives us rebirth. The motif of the briefcase, is glowing contents never shown, reaches thematic climax here. What's in the briefcase is beside the point. It symbolizes belief, value, meaning. Whatever it is, it's worth dying for, or in Jules' case, worth walking away for. The use of biblical language isn't just style, it gives the scene archetypal resonance. Jules becomes a prophet of self-reinvention. His choice isn't just for peace, it's for meaning. In a godless pulp world, that's revolutionary. Tarantino subverts our expectations. We're trained to expect bloodshed, but the power of this moment lies in restraint. In a film obsessed with pulp and violence, its most powerful act is non-violence. That's why it haunts us. So how does this ending compare with other genre-defining climaxes? Compare this with The Godfather's ending, Michael Corleone closing the door on his wife, or Taxi Driver, where Travis is ambiguously praised as a hero. Those films end with moral ambiguity and the triumph of violence. Pulp Fiction flips the script. Instead of reinforcing the coolness of crime, Jules walks away. Instead of rewarding violence, the film ends on a moment of mercy. This scene echoes Unforgiven's final anti-hero resignation and Magnolia's emotional breakdowns. But it's quieter, more internal. Even within Tarantino's own work, this scene stands apart. Kill Bill ends in revenge fulfilled. Django Unchained ends in blood-soaked freedom. It's the only Tarantino film where a killer walks away from violence for good. It also echoes spiritual finales like The Shawshank Redemption or A History of Violence, where release is emotional, not physical. In this way, Pulp Fiction's ending transcends genre. It becomes parable. So is this scene overly talky, or does it earn its philosophical weight? Critics argue that the scene is verbose, indulgent, and even preachy. They say Tarantino leans too hard on dialogue, not action, that it contradicts the film's earlier energy. But this is precisely the point. The talkiness is the action. For Jules, words are weapons, tools of transformation. The calmness is radical in a world of chaos. This isn't a shift in genre, it's a climax of meaning. The tension doesn't dissolve, it lingers. We still fear a gun might go off. That tension is what makes Jules' pacifism so powerful. It's not passive, it's a choice made under fire. And consider the alternative. What if the scene had ended in violence? It would have just been another crime movie. Instead, Tarantino delivers something transcendent, a moment that forces viewers to question what power really looks like. Even the humor in the scene, I'm trying real hard to be the shepherd, doesn't undercut the emotion, it deepens it. because Jules isn't preaching perfection, he's confessing vulnerability. Why does this scene stay with us decades later? Because it dares to end on reflection. It takes a film that delighted in fragmentation and violence and closes on unity and peace. It leaves us not with adrenaline, but with introspection. Pulp Fiction's ending is perfect because it transforms a pulp crime story into a philosophical fable about choice, identity, and redemption. Tarantino didn't just subvert genre, he subverted his own legend. He told us the coolest thing isn't a gun or a one-liner, it's walking away. The diner in retrospect isn't just a bookend, it's a sacred space, a final test. And Jules passes it not by pulling the trigger, but by letting go. Letting go of ego, of violence, of fear. This scene doesn't just end a movie, it ends a mindset. It redefines what it means to be cool, to be powerful, to be human. It doesn't just conclude Pulp Fiction, it elevates it.